أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us for a continuous charities webinar entitled Steps for Success, College Preparation, and Interest-Free Loans. We're excited to have everyone join us today as we kick off the California chapter for a continuous charity, an organization striving to help Muslim students achieve prosperous futures without interest-free loans, without interest-bearing loans. We hope you all find benefit in today's discussion, inshallah. And today we would like to begin our program with a short recitation by Hafid Hassan Elias, who resides in Orange County, California, and will be doing a quick recitation with translation. Brother Hafid Hassan.
السلام عليكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون. نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون. نزلا من غفور رحيم. ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين. ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم. وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ بالله إنه هو السميع العليم. صدق الله العظيم.
Brother Hassan will be doing the translation now.
As for those who say, "Our Lord is God," and take the straight path towards him, the angels come down to them and say, "Have no fear or grief, but rejoice in the good news of paradise, which you have been promised. We are your allies in this world and in the world to come, where you will have everything you desire and ask for as a welcoming gift from the most forgiving, the most merciful one. Who speaks better than someone who calls people to God, does what is right, and says, I am one of those devoted to God. Good and evil cannot be equal. Prophet, repel evil with what is better, and your enemy will become as close as an old and valued friend. But only those who are steadfast in patience, only those who are blessed with great righteousness will attain to such goodness. If a prompting from Satan should stir you, seek refuge with God. He is the all-hearing and the all-knowing.
Jazakallah khairan, Hafiz Hassan, for that beautiful recitation of Surah, some ayahs from Surah Fussilat, and the translation. Next, we have Brother Safir, who is going to be giving us a brief introduction and overview about A Continuous Charity, the organization, and what they do to help students basically pursue an interest-free education. So with that, Brother Safir.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Thank you for kicking us off. I'll speak briefly about ACC, and then we'll have Dr. Norris and Sister Babola do a nice fireside chat. ACC was started in June of 2013 by Dr. Athar Haq to tackle the looming crisis of student loan debt in the United States. Currently, there's about $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. And our estimation is that close to 500,000 Muslim students have crippling student debt. So Dr. Athar started ACC to tackle this problem, and he created ACC, a continuous charity, to create an endowment-like nonprofit that is able to fund students pursuing their education and then recycle that money as they pay it back. And so the way it works is that we go out and we collect donations from the community. And every year we hold applications around this time frame. Applications are open now till the end of March. And we ask a few questions about how much money that you need and what are some of the other activities that you do and what are you pursuing. And then we go choose a few applicants from there and decide to fund them. And when we decide to fund them and then they start paying us back, that money gets recycled again and is able to help another student go back. So you can imagine that over time, this grows into a very large endowment that can help serve the American Muslim community. And since starting in 2013, we have awarded over $3 million to 235 students. In 2020, we granted loans totaling to about 900K, allowing the students that we serve to save over $540,000 in interest. So this ACC is the embodiment of Sadaqah Jariyah for education, right? Allowing people to pursue their education without having to go into crippling debt and avoiding interest, which is what we're all prescribed to do. So without further ado, I would like to ask Sister Babola and Dr. Norris to come up, and we'll have them take it away.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much. My name is, as he said, Babalawa Kwanele, and I am a licensed therapist and work in schools and a clinic in schools and things like that. I've been doing that for a while. And provide the school-based mental health services. And I want to introduce my dear friend of a number of years, Dr. Norris. And Dr. Norris is a professor that helps to teach teachers. Works with teachers to prepare them through their programs to be teachers in schools. She's a poet, an author, a mother, a daughter, and and very active in the community. She has a podcast, Unhidden Voices, where she really explored some dynamic topics that are rarely talked about. So today, what we are going to do is I will be interviewing her and asking some questions that will be really useful for students. As we know, we want our students to be successful in school. So without further ado, Dr. Norris, you ready?
Absolutely. I'm very ready. I'm very excited.
Wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
Beautiful. So my first set of questions is, could you provide a few clear steps for students who are interested in going to school? And the first one that I'll ask of, that there's some sub-questions, is that when a student decides to go to college, they may be thinking, what am I going to major in? And am I going to be wedded to that particular major choice that I've chosen? Will I have to do this for the rest of my life?
Yeah. So the short answer to that question is basically, if once you get your degree in, for the most part, especially your undergraduate degree, so that's your bachelor's, BA or BS degree, essentially sets you up for beginning to work in the field, right? In any field. And for the most part, you can get an entry-level job with a BA that doesn't necessarily connect to what your long-term profession. Mm-hmm. So for example, I have a bachelor's of arts in communications, but I am not I'm not in the field of communications. I was in radio and television broadcasting. And I do some of that through the organization Unhidden Voices. But I'm, for the most part, an educator. Right. When you go further into graduate school, when you get your master's degree, when you get your doctorate degree, that your JD, that is when you are basically tied to whatever it is that you become a professional in that area. You become an expert, right? Either a master of it or a doctor of it. So in that case, yes, if you go into graduate school, then yes, that's a long-term career goal, and it would be wedded to, and you would be connecting to what your professional desire is that you want to become. What we say is for your undergraduate, for your bachelor's degree, you want to do something that is connected to, so that obviously if you're interested in anthropology and you want to wind up becoming an anthropologist, you probably want to study anthropology in your bachelor's degree, right? And then you can go further along the way. The other question that you asked about, how do I sort of pick, like, what do I need to do? And that's a good question. And it really, there's activities and surveys that you can do that kind of see what your learning interests are and kind of what if you're just kind of undecided. One of the great things about the bachelor's, the BA, the 4-year degree, is that the first 2 years is called general education. So really, you get to survey, you take classes in pretty much, you take in art, you take PE, you take math, you take science, you take general ed, similar to what you would get for your high school diploma. And it's to kind of allow you to see, like, I might have come in thinking I want to be an economist, but I really love, art. So, and when I took that class, it was phenomenal. And now I want to actually switch to become an artist. And that actually has, you mentioned that I'm a mom. 4 of my kids, all of them, are either in college or, they're all in college. And they, my youngest went in thinking she actually wanted to be an economist. And she actually ended up switching to political science, right? And so now she's doing political science. And so, you go, but she took the classes, she took the econ class, and she was like, oh my gosh, I thought I wanted to do this, but this isn't really what I want to do. So, you have options. Let's say that.
Okay, beautiful. And speaking of which, I'm wondering about those who choose after undergraduate and begin to look at wanting to go to graduate school. How important is it really to study the schools and to study the professors before applying to the schools? And at what point should a student who's an undergrad begin to take on that process?
So it is extremely important
Okay.
for you to know, especially if you're going to go into graduate school, you have to know the professors, you have to know what kind of school you want to go to. And so there's different kinds of schools, right? And I think people don't necessarily understand, and it matters more when you get to, for example, there's liberal arts colleges, which are really small schools. You're going to be in a small classroom, mainly no more than 20, 25 students in your seminars. And those are really teaching institutions where the students, undergraduates, get to know their faculty, and the professors are more, there to teach and support, and they teach in their field that they got their doctorate in and their degrees in. Then there are larger undergraduate teaching institutions, like where I teach at Sacramento State University. We have thousands of students in our, we have like 30,000 students, 30,000 undergraduate students. And those schools are really to, promote, focuses on at the undergraduate level. We do have some graduate courses and graduate studies and master's programs, but a lot of the focus there is mainly for undergraduates, right? And then you have institutions which do have a large undergraduate population, but those schools are really designed for research. They're research-oriented institutions like University of California, Berkeley, Boston University, Stanford University. These schools are research-oriented institutions, and that means that the focus really is on the graduate level, right? And so in order to actually attend one of those schools, you cannot get accepted if you haven't identified the faculty that you want to, mentor you, to be your advisor, that you develop a rapport and relationship. And so one of the things is obviously to make contact with that person. If they were your professor, when you're an undergrad and you want to stay on at the same institution, that's a good place to do that. But then additionally, if you don't, if you haven't met them before, you have to read their work, you have to set up an appointment, for interview, for like informational interviews with them to get to know them better, for sure.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that. And the other thing I'm wondering is that you went through that process. And could you sort of describe what inspired you to choose your graduate program and your career path? Because you've done so much over the years, and people can look up your resume online on your website. What's really inspired you to make this choice? I know that many young people are sort of thinking, I don't know what I want to do.
Yeah.
How do I know my career path? Could you tell me a little bit about what inspired you to choose your program and your career path?
So a few years ago, someone sent me this kind of meme, and it was like, "What is your purpose?" Right? And how do you uncover your purpose? And it was like kind of like a Venn diagram, and it was kind of like something like your desire meets like professional goals or professional idea, right? And then that's when you find your purpose, and that's when you're like super happy. And I found, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm in that window. I found it, right? So when I first, I didn't know. I'm one of those people who started off undecided, wasn't really sure, got a degree in communications because I thought, I wanted to be a journalist, right? I wanted to actually work behind the scenes. So my undergraduate degree is in that. And then I actually did a summer internship teaching, and it was teaching for the Freedom Schools, and it just changed my life. I loved it. It made me, I was just like, wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And the students really, I was so inspired by the connection, and it was just natural. It was just, it was not forced. It was something that just automatically that was where my heart was. And I did that for over 10 years. And then I kind of felt like, wow, I'm only really connecting with the students that come through my class. You know, I'm not really, if you're not in my class, I don't know you. And there was so much need that was happening, especially, you know, in our society, so many things that are going on, and especially like dealing with students of color who, I was teaching in a Muslim school in Oakland. And I was feeling like, at that time, there was so much oppression that was happening against the Muslim community, and then, you know, the Black community in the United States, and the brown community, and students were getting. So I said, I need to go to school to really focus on education. And at the time, I was also very interested in still, you know, media, but really in terms of as a tool for teaching students, and also as a tool for understanding how identity processes, like how representation, what does representation do for a person? Like when you see yourself on screen, or you see yourself on a television show, and if you do it and you see yourself in a positive light versus the negative representations that we see of so many of us. So I ended up looking at, and it was so funny because I didn't really know, oh, this means you need to get a degree in education, right? And I actually went and I opened up like the catalog, and I started with like A, anthropology, and went all the way to Z, zoology. And I was like, what am I supposed to be doing? And then I said, oh, I'm good, English, because I was teaching English. I should get a degree in English. I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I actually talked with a professor in the department, and I said to her, yeah, I was thinking about pursuing graduate school, and I'm really interested. And she said, I think this is my lucky day because it's my opportunity to recruit you to the Graduate School of Education at Berkeley. Yeah. Right. And she was like, I also have a degree in English, but you know what you can do with an education degree is so much broader. And you know, she said, because it's interdisciplinary. So you're not limited to like, she's like, you can study English, you can study media, you can study race, you can study anything under that umbrella of education. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is so cool, because now I don't have to like give up the zoology. Right? So I ended up pursuing, like I talked to her. She recommended that I visit classes in the graduate program. I decided to initially because at that time I had a bachelor's degree. I did not have a master's degree, so I applied for the master's program. And then I visited. I actually took, while I was in the master's program, I took a course that was a required course for the doctorate. To give me the idea of like, could I do this, right? You know, what would this be like for me? And at the time, because all my kids were school age, I have 4 children. They were all in school, and I was like, is this feasible for me to like at this age and at this stage in my life, and you know, to be in school with my kids? And I also talked to graduate students in the program. You know, talking about what was the commitment that you have to make? How did this alter your life? You know, were they parent people who had similar situations to myself? Either they may be parents, or they may be mothers, or like, you know, the Muslim community at my school. I think if you're going to be looking at different schools, you want to, you know, find your niche in terms of people you can connect with, again, that have similar experiences to you. So is there a strong Muslim student association on your campus? Is there a strong, if you're African American, is there a Black student union on your campus, right? People that you can also, because it's it can be very isolating, for sure.
That takes me right into my next question, and I really appreciate you bringing that up. And that is around, I have a couple more questions for you. I know that we're getting close to time. And that is like a circle of support. I'm always talking to students about finding a circle of support to help to support their mental wellness as well. And but it's really hard sometimes to build that. Could you sort of explain what it is that you sort of talk to students about, and even your teachers about circles of support, and how to build one in school and outside of school? I know that in our masjid communities, there are circles of support. However, there may be some people that are there that don't go to school, that aren't in school. How can a student build that circle of support for themselves? And how much is that useful in terms of their academic success?
If you don't have a circle of support, you're not going to be successful, especially if you in graduate school, even undergraduate school. There's so many students that just leave because they feel that sense of isolation. It's very hard, especially for those of us who don't have, like I'm the first person with the doctorate degree in my family that I know of, right? And so I had to, obviously build that support team with my immediate family, my husband, my kids, my parents, and then friends, and then also being able to navigate between, because I really did pray before I started graduate school, like I don't want it to lose myself. I was nervous about, like, if I go here, especially because I didn't really feel that support to do it. I was kind of venturing out on my own. No one else had gotten it. This wasn't like something that a lot of people I knew were doing. And I just didn't know. Plus I was older, plus I had kids. There was like a lot of things. And I also wanted to be able to still be able to be myself, have those conversations. And, it was so fun. This is just a quick story, but I went to, this party, right? And we were playing a game, and it was a guessing game where you had to try and figure out, and all of the graduate students it was like on a timer, and they were so busy in their heads that they couldn't actually, do the thing to help people guess. They were like, and I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to have graduate student brain. Like, I want to be able to, like, still be able to have a conversation with somebody, still be me. And so, those were the things that I prayed for. And I definitely think, you have to venture outside of even your department. So you get accepted and you have an advisor and you have the people in your class. But then, like, I ventured across campus. I went to the African American Studies department, and the chair of that department became my mentor. I worked in the theater and the new media studies department, and that one of the professors there became a mentor, and friends from those different departments are still friends of mine to this day. And the relationships that you build with, your advisors, this is not just a temporary thing. This is a lifelong relationship. These people will be in your life forever. So you want to be sure to, build that support and keep it afterwards, for sure, for certainly.
And that brings me to my last couple of questions. And one of them is really looking at that community impact, like the student going through school and giving back, like much like yourself, back to our Muslim community. If you could sort of give a little suggestions about that as well, just to help the students sort of think about, it's not just a degree for themselves. It's, really being a part of that charity of giving back what they've learned and giving back to their communities. Could you give a little snippet about what that might look like and how they can have a positive impact on the communities that they come from?
The most important thing for folks to do is become a mentor. Mm-hmm. So, and then whatever level that you're at, you can mentor someone else. So if you're an undergraduate, you mentor high school. If you're a graduate, you mentor undergrad. So when I was in graduate school, I became mentors for undergraduate students. I invited them to, like, work with me. Everything I've authored, I've co-authored, and my co-authors have all been, when a doctoral level was graduate students, when it was a graduate student, it was undergrads, right? And that is so important, to be able to continue to foster those relationships, to let people know that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. And also to be that person that you wanted, so like I wanted someone to mentor and support me. And that's what I try and offer to folks, and to be accessible, because I didn't want to change. And I want people to know, like, you can get a graduate school degree, but you don't have to become someone that your family, your parents wouldn't recognize, right? You want to be able to still have those conversations with people and continue those loving relationships with your friends and family members, and giving back is a part of that, for sure.
Good. Beautiful. And my last question, and we're right at time, is what is Unhidden Voices? Could you tell me a little bit more about what that is and why that name?
Yeah, so it actually it derives from Hidden Figures, that movie where it was kind of like this idea that these folks were they were scientists, they were they were computer scientists, and they did all this computational thinking, these Black women, and nobody had heard of them until really they were about to pass away, right? And so I think it's so important for us to be able to tell our own stories. And so what I've been able to, and as a means to, again, address representation, address racism, address discrimination by having people know who we are. So I do a lot of training through the Unhidden Voices LLC that I started, where I train in anti-racism. I train educators, I teach teachers, parents, community members in that. We have a podcast that that's on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Facebook. And we're actually I'm doing a live on Monday where we're going to talk about Black History Month and representation of, the films and different things that are going on. And I'm also speaking a little bit more about this topic Monday as well, just about, what it means to actually be able to attend college, what are some of the things you need to do to be successful, and also just navigating the system, right? And how to be in support. So these are all things that I train on through the Unhidden Voice, my work with Unhidden Voices. And it also gives me the opportunity to use my communications degree. So I do this, I still do the podcast, right? So I am able to do that, which is awesome. So yeah, I guess you are kind of wedded to what you get your undergraduate degree in, for sure.
That is really beautiful. Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward you for all of your hard work. And hopefully some of our young listeners, or those who are returning back to school, much like you did for yourself, there's a wide range of people who go back to school or who go to school. And so hopefully they can link into your podcast and really learn more about some of those tools and tips to be successful in college. So I thank you so much for your time today. And speaking of tools and tips for college, college has to be paid for. And we know that student loans can be extremely burdensome, those that have high interest rates. I saw a cartoon in the newspaper that said you had this man who started out really young and then was really old. And he says, well, guess what? I finally finished paying off my student loans. And that was because of the interest bearing on those loans. The next speaker that we're going to have is Brother Mar, who was one of those students that was that can provide some student voice to us about what that was like for him when he's going to give us a testimonial. So thank you so much, sister.
Thank you.
Jazakallah khairan, Sister Babawa and Dr. Norris, for that engaging talk and advice for students. We really appreciate it. Inshallah, the students will benefit from that talk. So like Sister Babawa was mentioning, I would like to also share my story as a student and recipient of a loan, an interest-free loan from a continuous charity. So just a few years ago, I was in USC for my dental school program, which was 4 years, and also a residency program that was also private. And that combined with USC was an extremely high tuition for myself and my family. So as people know, it's not easy to get through college, get through higher education. And on top of that, if you have student loans, it can be very burdensome on you, not just mentally, but financially straining for the entire family. Alhamdulillah, in the 7 years that I was in school, I was blessed with parents that were able to support a part of my education financially. However, not everyone Not many students have that luxury. And even with all their tremendous amount of help and sacrifice, my parents were ultimately depleted of all their financial resources and to help me support in my education. However, like many other students, I simply did not feel comfortable taking out any form of interest-bearing loans. And I was at a point of contemplating whether or not a graduate degree is even worth it if I have to engage in interest and sacrifice a major part of my religious principles and engage in riba. And there are many other students who are just in the same position as I was. They have to make these tough decisions about their career and future aspirations based upon the tuition and interest involved in pursuing an education. And as many people know, the costs have risen astronomically over the past 10, 15 years, whereas income has not risen at the same proportions. So this has made it a lot tougher for students to pursue their dreams in education or careers, and having to make these tough decisions has become a major issue in the community. So as far as myself, I did whatever I could to avoid taking out interest loans. I worked as much as I could on a part-time basis. I asked community members for help. I, went to different organizations and masajids because some of them have, assistance programs, but nobody was able to really help me to the point where I was able to, completely pay off my loans while I was in school. So I was forced to take out, financial aid loans. These were interest-bearing, unsubsidized loans during my schooling. So my interest rates at that point were about 6 to 7%, and this was all compounding interest. And as some of you may know, that's interest upon interest. So it just keeps building up over time. And that can lead to a very dangerous path of overwhelming debt. And that's the last thing that our students need in this generation, is having more and more debt, because that can lead to just digging yourself into a deeper hole and never being able to fully, be successful, and focusing on the most important thing, which is being able to focus on our deen and, being successful in that aspect to make us, better Muslims overall and, pursue Jannah. The thing is, most people don't understand that financial aid does not mean interest-free. More often than not, these student loans are very, very high in interest, and the rate is really high. So it was during this time I saw a Facebook flyer for a continuous charity, and I was actually blown away by the concept. I was able to apply that same year between January and March, which is the deadline for the application. And I was able to receive a substantial amount of relief on my interest-bearing student loans. So even though I was engaged in financial aid and interest-bearing loans, I was also able to pay off those loans through a continuous charity in a short amount of time. Right after I graduated, alhamdulillah, I was able to work and pay off my loans. And because I didn't have any interest with ACC, I was able to pay back my loans in a drastically faster time than I would have had I had not been introduced to ACC. So for me, it was personally a game changer. And in closing, I just want to mention that no matter how you look at it, A Continuous Charity is a one-of-a-kind nonprofit organization that has nothing but benefits. As a student, you can reap the benefits of avoiding interest, which will help you in your financial goals, your academic goals, and your professional development. It also will limit a lot of the stress and anxiety that comes with pursuing an education, and also will prevent that spiritual guilt that comes with engaging in riba. And as a donor, someone who participates in fundraisers or gives back to the organization, you actually earn the reward of sadaqah jariyah, because literally every single dollar that you donate is used over and over from one student to the next until the day of judgment, inshallah. So I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants A Continuous Charity a great amount of success, so that generations upon generations of students can not only benefit in this world, but in the next, which is the most important thing, inshallah. And with that, I would like to close out our webinar by reminding everyone that the application for applying for a interest-free student loan with ACC ends on March 31st, which is coming up in about a month and a half. The link to apply will be below. It's acceducate.org/apply, which is also posted below here. If you have any questions about the college application process, student loans, or anything else, please feel free to contact us by emailing advisor@acceducate.org. Jazakallah khairan for joining us today, and keep an eye out for more ACC events in the near future. Please like our Facebook page and subscribe to the YouTube link for a continuous charity. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.